Captain Mark Kelly is a former NASA astronaut who's logged a total of 38 days in space over 4 missions, 2 of which he served as mission commander. Kelly is the husband of Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and has recently been a vocal proponent of firearm regulation. I sat down with Captain Kelly to talk about his career in spaceflight and his upcoming lecture for IdeaFest.
I have a few different things I talk about, the power of communication, talk about decision making, also talk about the power of the human spirit. So it's not one particular thing, but a bunch of messages through a 45-minute presentation.
Can we talk about your career in spaceflight?
Sure.
Can you describe the size of the International Space Station?
The International Space Station weighs about 1 million pounds, so it's pretty big. If you were to sit it over the football field, in the stadium here, it takes up the whole field. So it's almost about the size of a football field. Now, a lot of that is solar arrays, a big truss with solar arrays. It has a lot of modules. There's a Japanese laboratory, US laboratory, European laboratory. There's some Russian modules to the space station, some connecting nodes to it, experiments on the outside. It's a pretty amazing facility that we now have in orbit, goes around the planet every 90 minutes.
How do you exercise up there? Is it difficult to get a good pump on in zero gravity?
Well, so nothing has any weight. The space station, there are 2 treadmills that you have to be strapped to. There is also a bicycle on the space station. And then there's this thing called a resistive exercise device, which is, it's pretty amazing because it's the only exercise device that I've ever seen that actually feels like you're lifting weights when you're not lifting weights.
So you're retired from NASA now, but do you ever think that you'll go back into space?
I don't know. I will not go back into space as a NASA astronaut, though we do have this new growing commercial spaceflight business that I hope will extend to flying people. So you never know, one day, maybe, I'll be 50 next year. So probably by the time that's happening, maybe I'll be a little too old.
So finally, what is the biggest threat that spaceflight currently faces?
It's interesting. The Department of Defense, a number of years ago, it might have been 15, 20 years ago, did a study on what are the biggest threats to our country, to our, to our society. You know what was at the top of that list? It wasn't nuclear weapons. It wasn't terrorism. It was the problem we have with educating math and science, STEM education in this country, was a national security threat. That it really will have a long-term negative effect if we can't improve and produce more engineers and scientists and mathematicians in this country. It's a big deal. I mean, it affects the future of this nation.